This is Gemara Horayos, Daf Yod, and we begin a new perek, Baruch Hashem, the third perek here in this pretty difficult Masechta, as we wrap up Seder Nezikin B'siyata Dishmaya. All the learning for this month has been dedicated by a very close friend of the Daf, Aschos, Baruch Hashem, to be learning together as Aschos Aliyas Neshama for his mother, Esther Reyzel Basar Meir, B'siyata Dishmaya, the incredible Kayach HaTeirah, should bring Esther Reyzel Basar Meir to a high place in Gan Eden Shalmaila, closer to the Kisei HaKavod and a Melitziasher for her entire Mishpacha. So we're holding on the bottom of Testament Beis, and we begin a new parak. Kohen Mashiach Shechata. So we have a Kohen Mashiach, an anointed Kohen, as we've been learning in the previous prakim. Shechata, that didn't have era, and then what happened? V'acher kach, and afterwards, avar mimi shichusai. He was removed. He left his position. He no longer is in position of being Kohen Gadol. Now, why is this? Mefarshim explain whether it's because of his age, whether it's because he has a mum, v'chein, and similarly, a second case says the Mishnah. We have a Nasi that has the same story, Shechata, that didn't have Eira, V'achar kach, and afterwards, Avar migadlusai. The Nasi is no longer within his position of that he was prior. Again, whether it's because he was thrown out of office, he's no longer the king, the Nasi. Kohen Mashiach. So what's the halacha? Maybe par. Vanasi maybe Sayer, and the Nasi brings a Sayer. Says the Mishnah, so that's if the Avira was committed. And then these people of power, these people of stature, this Kohen, the Nasi, then what happened was they left office, we'll call it. But what happened, says the Mishnah, Mashiach Sha'ivin Mimshichusai V'achar Kachata. Or Nasi Ever Megalusai V'achar Kachata. The Kohen Gadol, the Nasi, first got that mum, first was thrown out of power, and then didn't have Beira. So what carbon do they now bring? Do they bring a carbon now, like their prior status of being a Kohen Gadol, of being a Nasi? Or do they bring a carbon now of the status that they are at the time that they did the Avera, which was a regular Hadiyat, a regular person? Says the Mishnah, Kohen Mashiach maybe par. V'hanasi, in this level, the Nasi is Kehadiyat, and he brings the carbon like a regular person. So says the Gemara, and the simple, without getting any deeper for the moment, is the Kohen Gadol always retains a level of his Kedusha, even though when he's no longer in power, whereas in Nasi, his power, his kingship, is only dependent upon the people. Says the Gemara, let's understand why the Mishnah to say both cases. Now that you said a case where this Kohen was Avar Mimshichusai, this Kohen is no longer in power. Says the Gemara, 1 second, where's the next page? Here it is. V'achar kach, and afterwards, Chata, and afterwards, to the Avera, maybe par. Loch, as you bring a par. So then, ask the Gemara, the second half of the Mishnah. What was the second half of the Mishnah? If the Avera came first, Chata, and then, the first half of the Mishnah, Chata v'acharav Mashichusai, Srich lemeimar. So ask the Gemara, once we have the second case in the Mishnah, why do you need the first case? Says the Gemara, you know why? Because of the other case in the Mishnah, of course. Because it says, what were the last words of the Mishnah? That the Nasi, if he did that Aveira after he was removed from office, he has the status of a regular Hadyet, Kehadyin Maisi. 4 lines down, Yudam and Aleph. Chitani therefore had to learn Gavim Mashiach, had to teach us by a Mashiach, not this way. That Chotav Achamer Mevi Par. So says the Gemara, that's why you couldn't just learn one of the cases. So ask the Gemara, Minahani Mili, where do we know this halacha from? The Tana Rabbanan, says the Torah, Ve'ekrev el Chatasa, he brings a karban melam, Meishmi v'Chatasa mishavar. This teaches us that he brings his chatas, his special chatas, even after he was ready avar, he's no longer in position of power. Sheyach, I would think, Valai didn't it's a kavachemer. Oma nasi shemevi b'shigas ma'isa. Ein mevi chatas mishavar. Mishiach shein mevi b'shigas ma'isa. Ella al helam davar im shigas ma'isa. That the Mashiach, of course, has to add a level. You need both helam and shagaga. Like all shekain. So says the Gemara, you know, for what's the makar? Tamid leimar vehekrav al chatasai. Shmelami, that teaches us shemevi al chatasai mi she'avar. Even if the avira was after he's no longer in a position of power. Ask the Gemara. V'nesi nami nasi mikal v'chaymer. Ask the Gemara. The nasi should be the same thing. Why doesn't the kal v'chaymer dictate that the nasi still brings the same karvan? What's the kal v'chaymer? Ma Mashiach shemevi b'shigas ma'aseh yamevi chatas mishavar nasi. Shemevi b'shigas ma'aseh and then shemevi chatas mishavar. So why not? Says the Gemara, Talmud Ksiv Apostle Kisher Nasi Yachateh. From that pasuk we learn Kishu Nasi in Kishu Hadiyat Loi, that it's only going to be if the Vera was committed, if he has the status of Nasi. But since right now he has the status of Hadiyat, his carbon will as well revert to the status of a Hadiyat. Says the Mishnah. Another Mishnah about 15 lines down on Yud Amid Aleph. The Mishnah continued the halachas of the Kohen Gadol of the Anasi, but here we're going to have a case in which they're trying to have the kapara. They're trying to have a kapara for averos that were done before they became Kohen Gadol, before they became Nasi. Says the Mishnah, Chetoi ad shaloi nismana. They didn't have avera before they were appointed Nasi Kohen Gadol. V'achach nismana, then they were appointed. What's the halacha? What carbon do they bring? Look at yotis. The avera was done at a moment that they were a Hadiyat, and there was no position yet. So the fact they were appointed afterwards, they still bring a carbon like a Hadiyat, says the Tanakama. Rav Shimon says Rav Shimon, no, it's not just when you did the Aveira. Says Rav Shimon, if they knew about it, if they knew about their Aveira before they were appointed in Chayav, but if they only knew about their Aveira once they became Kohen Gadol, once they became Nasi, then Peturim. Continues the Mishnah, Izehu Nasi. What is the Nasi that we're talking about? Zeh Melech. As when we learned the previous Mishnah, we kept on referencing that a Melech B'loyam is not a Melech. We kept on saying that the whole din of Malchus has to do with his people. So now it says the Mishnah just that detail. That where does this come from? That the Nasi has the status of a Melech, Shem Kol Mitzvah, Hashem Elikav, She'ein Al Gabav Ella, Hashem Elikav. So me teaches that it's only a person, that the only entity on top of him is Hashem Elikav and not anyone else. And that's what we learn out, that the Nasi has other people on top of him, the status of a Melech. Says the Gemara, Minani Mili. Where do we know this? Din the Tana Rabbanan. We learned in the Torah. Prat. They come say exclusively kaid mais. It's avirus now, not its prior avirus. Sheyachol, I would think din hu tekav chaymer ma nasi shemayvi b'shigas ma'asein maybe al kaid mais. Nasi does not bring carbonates for his prior avirus. Mishiach and maybe el elam davar and shigas ma'isa. Ein adin shleyavi al kaid mais. He should not either. So maybe we should have such a kavachaymer. Says Gemara, no, lie. You know why? Im amr ben nasi. I'll tell you why. Shkein. The comparison is not glad, because we already see a difference between the two, and therefore, since he asked to bring a carbon on that which he did prior, therefore, mishaver means after he left his position of power. I mean, there's another fundamental difference, as we saw in the end of the Mishnah, between the Nasi and the Kohen Gadol. Once the Nasi is removed from power, whereas Mashiach does, and therefore the Kal V'Chomer is flawed. Talmud Laimar, moving on to the first white line, says the Gemara Talmud Laimar, HaMashiach Yecheteh, and from there we learn out that Chatak Yeshehu Mashiach, it's only if the Avira was when he was a Kohen Gadol, Shu Hedyet, Einoi Mevi. And we find similarly Gabi Nasi Kai Gavna says the Torah Shanasi Yecheteh Prat Likoid Mashiach everything about Lodenu. Mamish the same Gemara in reverse. Mashiach maybe Chatot Mishavei maybe Al Koid Mais Nasi should maybe Chatot Mishavei Din Shilo Yavi Al Koid Mais. Malam Mashiach Kinin maybe we should get Maisa. Torah Nasi should maybe we should get Maisa. Hala maybe we should get Maisa Yavi Al Koid Mais Tamalaymar, and therefore we need a pasuk Kasher. Nasi Yecheteh Shechatav Hareyu Nasi V'lo Shechatav Odeo Hedyet. So two different Mekayrais teaching us the halachas of the Nasi of the Mashiach when their Averos were done prior, whether they would have a Chiyuv or not. We continue. We're on the sixth very wide line at the two dots. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara. Let's go a little bit deeper into these karbanos of the Nasi of the Kohen Gadol. Tanu Rabbanan teaches the Torah Shanasi Yecheteh. So Yachal, I would think Gzeira. I would think that it's a Gzeira that the Nasi is going to have an Avera. Shenasi Yecheteh. Tamaleimer Makayna Mashiach Yecheteh. Malahalon Lishich Yecheteh. It doesn't mean the Torah is teaching me he's going to sin. The Torah is saying when he sins. Avkan L'Sheyecheteh. Amar Mar. Yachal Gazu Gzeira. Nechatesi. Says the Gemara, what was the Havamina? What was the Havamina be? That there's a gezerah that the Nasi is going to have to do an Avera? What in the world? Answers Gemara, Amri, yes. That was the Havamina. Ashkhan, we find such a thing, and from there we learn out to Besura, Hui Lahem, Shanigayim, Bayim Aleim. The Torah is teaching that they're going to have Negayim, they're going to have Tzaras Tivi Rabbi Yehuda. Sheva never know, probably Negi Einsim. That's going to be a different case, because that comes from an external detail what the person was over. Lav Amar Rav Yehuda. The Rav Yehuda did not learn Besura. It's showing us that there's going to eventually be a problem over here. So too says the Gemara. You would think maybe by the Nasi, it's talking about the fact that it's a Gzeira. He's going to do that here. Rav Shimon Nigi Einsin Miloi Nitamu says the Gemara. But according to Rav Shimon, what does he say? Does the Tzaras not come from external factors? V'atanya, but we learned in the Brayso Adam Kiyah Min Hadibur says Adam Kiyah, and from there we learn now Min Hadibur Ve'elach, which teaches us that from this Dibur and onwards that the halachas of Tzaras apply written from when the Torah was given. V'aleidinu, and says Gemara, why do we need this pasuk? V'aleidinu ma tami b'zav v'tami b'negayim. Ma'azav min hadibur ve'elach, am negayim min hadibur ve'elach. So chayra should be a davar pashit that the halacha is that it comes min hadibur ve'elach, that these halachas of Tzaras are only from when the Torah was given. Says Marloi, Amr b'zav shekein ein mitame ba'ines. Every time it's din by zav that doesn't have a din of toma. Term b'negayim shemitamim ba'ines. So the equation is not concrete, because we see a flaw in the comparison. Tamaleimer Adam ki aminat dibar ve'ilach. Rava Amar Prale nige rucha. He says Rava, no, a different Joshua. You know what the Torah comes to exclude? Tzaras that came from the wind, from a shade. Rapapa Amar Prale nige kshafim mamish sorcery. Continues the Gemara with another Joshua. Tanu Rabban. Continues the Gemara. Asher nasi yecheteh p'ral l'chayla mishum nahavle chayla idchilei menisu asai. 10 lines from the bottom. The first one line is idchi. Says the Gemara. Asher nasi yecheteh p'ral l'chayla. ask the Gemara. So when we were explaining the Mishnah, we said it's because of a mom. We said it's because of other reasons that the person is going to no longer be in power. It says the Gemara just because he got sick. No, it doesn't mean Stami got sick. It means a Nasi has Saras. Nasi has Saras, then he cannot serve anymore. And then the halacha of the Chatas will not apply. Shnemar, V'nige Hashem, V'nage Hashem Samelech V'mitzayra, Ad Yemaisev Yashav V'eis HaChoivshis, V'yosef Ben HaMelech Alabayis. So we see that when there is an element of Saras, the Nasi cannot be in office at that moment. Explains the Gemara Midika Amar from the fact that the pasuk says v'beis hachovshis mechlal dar avshta everavi. Now the person is chavshi. Until now, he was a servant. What does it mean he was a servant? Because the melech is considered a servant to the people. And now the Gemara proves this with a story. Kihad Rav Gamliel. Says the Gemara, Rav Yeshua, Azli B'Svinta, Rav Gamliel, Rav Yeshua are going in a boat. Bahade, together with Rav Gamliel, have pita. He had bread. Bahade, Rav Yeshua, have pita v'solta. Rav Yeshua had bread and flour. Shlim pita, the Rav Gamliel. When Rav Gamliel's bread was finished, Samach HaSolta Rav Yeshua. He was on Rav Yeshua's flour to have something to eat. And Amar Leis, Rav Gamliel says to Rav Yeshua, fascinating, Rav Yeshua, you didn't just come with food, you came out with flour. Maybe Yadit Avale Kuva, Kuli Hai, you Rav Yeshua, you chapped, you're going to take us so long that you brought flour. Amar Leis. So Yeshua responds, Daisi Solta Amar Leis, Koichav Echad Hashem Mishana. Says Yeshua, there's one star every 70 years that what? Oile goes up and mitas Sfinas as upon him. And it messes up the sailors. So I said, Rav Yeshua says, I said to myself, Shema Ya'alev Yita, maybe it's going to come, that star's going to mess us up. Therefore I brought extra food. Amar Rav Gamliel says, Kol kach v'yadcha, v'ata'ile b'svina. Rav Gamliel says, you're such a smart person, such a credible chachma, and now you're on a boat out to earn parnasa. So Amar Rav Yeshua responds 2 lines to the bottom. Ad sha'ata tamal la. You ask a kasha. Me says Rav Yeshua. Tamal shnei talmidim. Sheyesh l'chabe yabasha Rav Elazar chasma Rav Yechon ben Gudgida. So Yeshua responds. Ask about your talmidim. Rav Elazar ben chasma and Yechon ben Gudgida. Sheyoidim. That they know l'shayar kamatipas yish b'yam. They know they can count and they can know how many dots are in the water, and yet they don't have bread. So says the Gemara of Gamliel. Rav Gamliel, yes, decided to put them at the top of the yeshiva. When Rav Gamliel came, he asked them. They didn't come. Amar lehem kimedumin. You think I'm offering you a position of shurara, and that's why you don't want to come. You're running away from the kavod, says Rav Gamliel. As we turn over to Yudam Abay, says Gamliel, Avdos ani noisi lachem. Don't think I'm giving you anything chashiv. Says Rav Gamliel, really, what I'm offering you, this level of kavod, is in reality, says Rav Gamliel, nothing more than Avdos. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Yidaber elav leimar im hayom tia eved. So proves the Gemara the status of the Nasi. Continues the Gemara Tanarabban on 3 lines down. Asher Nasi Yachet, the Nasi doesn't have a Rav Yeshua. Yechon ben Zakkai, excuse me. Asher Yadar, praiseworthy is the people. Shanasi Shalom Evi Karban. Asher Gasai, Im Nasi Shalom Evi Karban. Sarachat Oleimer. Ma'u Hediyet. If the Nasi brings a chatas, is it a question what the Hedi will bring? V'mal Shigasei Mevi Karban. Sarachat Leimer Ma'u Zidainai. So it's clear what the halacha is going to be. So Maskiv La Rava, Breid the Rabba, really? Elameyata D'chsev. Ves Asher Chata Min HaKodesh Yishalim. Whatever the Aveir is in the Kodesh, you have to pay. It says by Ravam, he did Averis and he caused others to do Averis. Hachinami, the Ashur Yadar Azeh. Ashrei Hadar, who says the Gemara, you could say as well that those people are incredible. Why? Excuse me, are you going to tell me that these people are also credible? Meaning, based on the drasha you just said, would come out that they're also gavaldik. What do you mean? They're busy doing averais. Says the Gemara, I'll explain to you what's going on over here. Shiny acham, the shani kra bidi burei. The difference is over here, the Torah is speaking. Says the Gemara, bidi burei, the way that it talks, and therefore it starts with im. And that's the reason why it's not a good kasha. Darash, Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda. On a similar vein of darshaning up words that are similar, the word asher to mean ashrei, fortunate, says Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Maidach sev yish hakol asher nasa la'aretz v'goymer ashreim natzadikim. We learn out from here, praiseworthy is the tzadikim shemagia aleim kemaisei arashayim shalaylam haba b'olam hazeh. Wonderful as the tzaddikim are treated in this world, like the Rishayim in the next world. Says the Gemara, Oilem the Rishayim, but woe to the Rishayim shemigi aleim that they get. Kabaitzi says tzaddikim shalalim haba b'olam hazeh. And of course, this is the basic tenet that having the good in this world is not necessarily good at all, because rather it's just detracting from the next world. Amar Rava becomes like Rava, and he's bothered. Atu sadiki mi achli tari alma. What do you mean? Mi sani leho. Is it Atu sadiki that they have both worlds? Elam Rava Hashem the tzadikim shemagi aleim kim meiser rishayim shalaylam hazeh b'olam hazeh. Adam the rishayim shegim aleim kim meiser tzadikim shalaylam hazeh b'olam hazeh. Says no, it means purely in this world. The rishayim are going to have the hardships. And that's how we darshan up the pasuk. Rav Papa v'Ravuna b'Reider v'Yeshua asli kamei Rava Amar leho came in front of Rav and he said, "Akminti mesechta planu mesechta bilan." Do you learn? Have you mastered such and such mesechta? Amar lei. He responded in yes. Adatrino. Porta. Do you have a bissel money? Amar lei in yes. The zavnin katina dara. We bought a little piece of land, and that land is what we live on. Kari alayu, so he said upon him, Rava said, Ashreim natzadikim on the last narrow line, Shavim aleim kamaisir shayim, shaylam hazeh, b'olam hazeh, the tzadikim get both world. They don't only have the next world, but they as well get this world as well. And the first white line continues the Gemara. Continues the Gemara contrasting the Rishayim and the Tzadikim. Amar Rabbi Rav Chana Mevi Yechanan. Ma'idich Sev. Ki Yisharim Derech Hashem Tzadikim Yalchu Ba. That straight are the ways of God, and the Tzadikim walk in it. Whereas the Rishayim, Upaishim, Yikashlu Bam in the second white line. What's Pshat? Tzadikim walk in it, and the transgressors stumble. Mashal Shnei Bnei Adam Shetzalai. Two people who roast their carbon Pesach. Echad achal l'sham mitzvah. What is a mitzvah? Echad l'sham achila gasa. One ate it just to enjoy the meat. Zeh shachal l'sham mitzvah. Tzadikim yalchu ba givaldik. You got a wonderful meal, but you're at tzaddik, so you get incredible reward for it as you eat it as a mitzvah. Tzadikim yalchu ba. Zeh shachal l'sham achila gasa paishim. Yikashlu bam, that's what it means. Yikashlu ba, that you're going to stumble with it. Amrli Reish Lakish, 1 second. Rasha Karaslei says Reish Lakish, you go on this person that he ate the carbon pesach mamish just for enjoyment. You're calling him a Rasha? You're right. He didn't have the greatest kavanas. He didn't have the greatest intent to eat the carbon pesach for the right reason. But says Gemara pesach nami lokachol. You telling me he didn't eat the carbon pesach? Of course he did. He ate the carbon. Ella says the Gemara Yishlakish didn't like that mashal, a new mashal. Mashal name of the Adam Zeishtai Vachusai Imai Bebayis on the 5th white line. Says the Gemara, this one had his wife and his sister and his house Zeishtai Vachaisei Bebayis. And the other one had the same. Nizdam lo Ishtai Nizda, excuse me. Ella Zeishtai Vachaisei Bebayis. Echa Nizdam lo Ishtai. One of them was with his wife. Vecha Nizdam lo Vachaisei. and one of them, unfortunately, was with his sister. The one that was together with his wife, he's a tzaddik. He had the mitzvah of Aina with his wife. Says the Gemara, what? What are you talking about? Me, dummy? We're speaking about one road, the same road the tzaddikim and the Rishayim are going on. That's the pasuk. But in your case, this one's with his sister, this one's with his wife. That's shnei derachim. That's two different roads. Ela Mashal tries the Gemara again 6 lines down. Light and his 2 daughters, ancient is Avil mitzvah. Both of them want to do a mitzvah. Yeah, tzaddikim yachul is what? You should scam the shape. Excuse me, tzaddikim yachul should scam the shape. No. Hey, should scam the shom mitzvah. Tzaddikim yachul. The one that had intent for the mitzvah is tzaddikas. Who should scam the shom avera? Poisha b'kashlu bumps. They're both at the same ma'isa. It's the same road, and one is a tzaddik, one is a rasha. Says the Gemara of Adelma hu na'ami l'shem mitzvah umechavim. Maybe light had intention to do a mitzvah. No. Says the pasuk of Yisa lehem. Vayisa lot, excuse me, says the pasuk. Vatisa ishes adeinav es einav. Es einav, what does that mean? Vayomer Shimshon v'gomer oisa kach li ki ya yishara beinai. Vayar oisa shchem ben chamar. As called kikar hayardein, says the Gemara. Ki bi'ad isha azayin al kikar lachem. Kikula mishke achla achrei me'avai noisli lachmi. Me'mai samri upishti shamni v'shikuyav. Says the Gemara, okay, so you have a nice pasuk, but stam akashav, I'm even honest. The story was that Leit was forced to do the ma'isa. Leit didn't do this by choice. Tanami Shem Avyesi ben Parabi. Tanami Shem Avyesi. Parabi Chayni. Lama Nokal Avav Shebemekayma Shebekuma Shebechira. Why is there an extra dot on the Vav? You know what the Vav teaches us? That teaches Lama teaches us. Lama Chashem Shechval Yada Aval Bekuma Yada. He teaches us that Light didn't know when they started having the relations, but he knew when he got up. When it's too late now. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you. You're right. There was nothing he could have done that first day, but you know what? He shouldn't have drank again the next evening. And that's where the Torah is faulting Light for part of the Maisa. We'll stop over here. We'll continue with the story of Light in the next year in Mirza Hashem.